This week on r/relationship advice.
I have crippling depression.
Stay till the end to find out what happens when. Wife told me she wanted to experiment, I obliged, then she attempted to eat my fesses. My 20F boyfriend, 21M, wouldn't pay for my meal when I forgot my wallet.
You are fake news.
Basically the title. Usually on dates, we split the bill. I don't really care. Like in the past, I've paid for the full bill and my ex would pay for the bill other times. Like we'd go back and forth. My current boyfriend wants us to each pay for what we ordered. From the first date, he said that's how he likes to do things. I was fine with it. I didn't really care if he wouldn't pay for me. Paying on a date is sweet to me and I like it, but I have my own job so it's whatever. I figured maybe he doesn't have a ton of money and he can only cover his own bill. Anyway, I didn't really have any problem with it, but we went out to some random spot, like a local Chipotle. It tastes way better though. So he went down the line and he got his own meal. I'd ordered mine and then when I went into my bag, I realized I forgot my wallet at my house. I told him that I forgot it by accident and I thought he'd offered to pay and I'd pay him back, but he was like, "Oh, that sucks," and sat down to eat. I was just like, what the frick? This guy standing behind me in the line paid for my food and I paid him back through Cash App. After we ate, I lied and said my mum needed me to come home for something and our date was cut short since we were supposed to go shopping in the city. How messed up is that? Like, why is he so cheap? A random stranger paid for me and he wouldn't.
Be gone!
My wife baby trapped me.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
I put baby trap in quotation marks, because I'm not sure what she did is the actual definition of baby trap. She didn't have a kid to make me stay, just against my will. So my wife, 32F, and I, 34M, have been together for 8 years. We have a little girl, 5F, and a baby boy, 2M. I love both of them more than anything and I finally feel like I have everything. A beautiful wife, 2 healthy kids, a great career, and a big house. The token American dream, minus the dog. I'm allergic. When we talked about kids before, my wife always said she wanted 2. I only wanted 1. It would be easier and we'd have more money for vacations and stuff, but my wife maintained it's important for a child to have a sibling. I grew up with 4 and my wife with none, so I guess I understand where she's coming from. After our son and getting through the baby years and sleepless nights for the second time, I didn't want to ever go through that again. Both kids were very fussy and colicky, but when he was a year old, my wife began casually mentioning a third. I would laugh it off, but finally she sat me down and said we have to have a third. I said no, we agreed on 2, but she said she wanted 4 and 3 is the compromise. I refused and said I wanted 1 and we have 2. She got angry and called me selfish for taking away her dream of wanting a big family. A couple days later, she apologized and we had sex. I noticed her drive increased exponentially, but so did mine and I was happy to engage her. She was on birth control, I had a condom, it was all good. Thinking back on it, I probably should have figured something was up, but I was barely handling 2 little kids and work on top of housework and yard work and everything. I came home from work one day, while the kids were at their grandparents'. My wife had a huge smile on her face and she sat me down and showed me a positive pregnancy test, literally dancing in joy. My first thought was, oh shit. My wife noticed a less than happy expression on my face and started screaming at me. She berated me for not being supportive and this was a miracle from God and I should be grateful. I said I was sorry and hugged her and said I was super excited for the baby. My wife was delighted and later that night she was calling all family and friends to happily tell them the news. When she was talking about the nursery and how we'll convert my office into a room, I started to get a little suspicious. Everything was so well thought out and it seemed like she'd been planning this for a while. When she was asleep, I took the condoms out of the cupboard and ran them underwater holes. I nabbed her phone and saw she'd set a password. That was odd. Nevertheless, my wife has a terrible memory, so I tried her birthday and it opened. Further up were texts with the best friend of my wife complaining how I wouldn't come around. Her best friend suggested arrange an accident with a winky face. My wife agreed and said she was going to come off of birth control. It went on for a little while, ending with my wife saying that yes, we were going to have a third. So I woke her up immediately and asked her if this had really been a miracle. She got the deer in headlights look and burst into tears. She wailed and then she got angry. Through tears she screamed I had no right to go through her phone and it's her choice whether or not she wants to take BC, the side effects are bad and she was sick. She also brought up if I really didn't want a third kid, I should have had a vasectomy. She told me to go sleep on the couch. I laughed out loud and said no, I am sleeping here, you're leaving. So while wailing she packed a bag and left to her parents. When she called the next day I told her I just need some time to myself. She said that's fine, that I need to come around for our child. I told her I wasn't sure if it'd be our child and she cried more. It's been 2 weeks since then. Governments recommended to stay at home and I knew staying home by myself while also working with 2 kids would not be ideal and she wanted to see our kids. So we're in the same house. She constantly keeps on stopping me and trying to get me excited for our kid and planning the nursery and names and how happy our kids will be to get a younger sibling. I've been ignoring her entirely. What do I do? Staying home with her is bad enough and I don't know if I should leave her over this. I don't trust her anymore. She entirely betrayed it. I'm angry. But I have another child on the way. Wife told me she wanted to experiment, I obliged, then she attempted to eat my feces.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Throwaway account, because my wife follows my regular account here. My 28M, wife, 26F, and I have admittedly had very vanilla sex throughout our 3-year marriage. We had our first kid a year ago and it seriously slowed down our sex life. However, a little under a month ago she approached me about trying new things. She has been hanging out with a group of moms in our neighborhood and one of them told her that she and her husband tried pegging and it completely transformed their marriage. My wife told me that she wanted to try pegging as well to spice things up. At first I thought it was a joke, but soon realized she actually wanted to peg me. I had never done a splay before and had always lived by the philosophy that the anus is solely an exit, but my wife made it clear that this was important to her, so after a few days I obliged. That next weekend, she pegged me and everything was surprisingly enjoyable. Additionally, the week following the pegging was one of the best weeks we've had together since the birth of our child. We were back to our old sex life, doing things like having sex before work and even waking each other up with head. However, that next weekend she told me she wanted to peg me again. I was slightly confused as to why this last week of sex wasn't cutting it for her, but I agreed. This is when things took an extreme turn. During this second pegging while my wife was inside of me, she grabbed my hair, craned my neck to the right, and pressed our foreheads together. I had never seen her take control like this and thought it was very hot until she looked me in the eye and whispered, "I want your shit." I pulled my face away and asked her to repeat and she said, "I want you to shit on me." I pushed her off of me and asked her if she was joking and she started crying. I felt like a freaking dong, because she thought I was kink shaming her. In a way, I was, because I thought the request was far too extreme. I ended up leaving for the night and stayed with one of my close friends, but didn't tell him what happened. After that incident, my wife and I hardly talked all week unless it related to our son. At the end of the week, I asked my wife to talk about what happened. She told me again that she wanted me to shit on her and that it meant a lot to her. I thought it was sickening, but she claimed this was her deepest, darkest kink. I couldn't understand how and why my shit excited her, but she insisted that she has always wanted this. We fought about this for about a week, and after watching some skat-play and reading articles by people who also share this kink, I tried to put myself in my wife's shoes. I told her that I will shit on her if that is what will turn her on. She was so happy, and even though I was still completely nauseated by this desire, I wanted to satisfy her. That brings us to tonight. We were having sex for the first time this week when I regrettably, confessed to her that I had to take a shit. She perked up with a smile, sensed my discomfort, and began stroking my hair and whispering encouraging things to me. I still really didn't want to go through with it, but since I had promised her, I pulled out and we ran to the bathroom. She got into the bathtub and I hung my ass over the side of the tub. I started pushing, but unsurprisingly found it very difficult to successfully shit on my wife. I turned my head around to see my wife staring up and smiling at me, waiting for me to finish. With enough time, I was finally able to get a turd to start coming out. I could hear my wife breathing heavier beneath me as my asshole started opening. However, before the turd was able to drop on her chest, I felt a sensation around my asshole. I turned around and saw my wife, the love of my life, the mother of my son, attempting to catch my turd in her mouth as it fell out of my asshole. I was horrified that she would try to do this, and tried to pull the shit back into my body so she couldn't receive it in her mouth. Seeing what looked like an attempt by her to eat my shit brought me close to throwing up. As I clenched my butt cheeks together to try to stop the shit from reaching my wife, the clenching cut off a very small piece of my shit and I heard it land somewhere beneath me. I was too scared and disgusted to look at my wife to see what she had done with it, so I ran to the other bathroom to clean myself. As I was sitting in the other bathroom thinking about how I will ever be able to look my wife in the eye again, I heard footsteps approaching. My wife lightly knocked on the door. I didn't respond and was on the verge of throwing up the more I thought about what just happened. She walked away and then I got a text from her thanking me for fulfilling her wish and asking me to come to bed. I've been sitting in the living room typing this for the last half hour, scared to face my wife. We have plans to take our son to the zoo with another family tomorrow, but I don't think I can look at her after what she did to me. I feel deceived and violated by the woman I love and trust. During our initial conversations about this, there was never a question that my shit would go anywhere other than her chest. She knew how uncomfortable I was with this in the first place, yet she still tried to push the boundary that we had established. I would appreciate any feedback from anyone who has experienced a similar violation of trust from a loved one. I am turning to this sub for advice, because for obvious reasons, I cannot tell anyone that knows my wife and I. I know that some of you may find this humorous, but please serious comments only. This is something that could lead to the end of our marriage.
You are fake news.